It's important to pay attention not only to the words being said, but also pay attention to what's happening behind the words. Often there is a deeper level than just the words themselves, and if we pay attention to this deeper level, it can help us identify what is really going on in a social interaction or exchange. When you're writing something, or say for example you're required to write a paper in school, you hear teachers talk about subtext. What is subtext? Subtext is the implied, implicit, or metaphorical meaning as of literary text. If you listen to the song Money by Pink Floyd, the lyrics sound like they're praising the lifestyle of the rich, the lifestyle of living lavish. The lyrics, money, it's a gas. Grab that cash with both hands and make a stash. New car, caviar, 4-star daydream, think I'll buy me a football team. At first, when you hear this song, it may give the impression of how it's great to be rich, have a lot of money, but when you hear the Pink Floyd songwriter Roger Waters, he explains, while he was interested in material wealth, driving Bentleys, such things like that up until a point, he is also being critical of money at the same time, because he's wary of how it can lead to excess. He uses oil as an example, how when we pursue after it, having nicer, faster, more expensive cars, it can quickly get out of hand. So the outward or explicit meaning in the lyrics is that having a lot of money is a great thing. But the deeper level, subtext or implied meaning Pink Floyd is getting at is that it's a double-sided coin. It's ironic, the benefits as well as the dangers and excesses that go along with being rich. Art, literature, music, poetry are all riddled with examples of subtext, but it's also prevalent in everyday life, everyday communication. Conversation. Remember when we landed on the moon and Neil Armstrong was the first man to walk on the moon? He was quoted as saying, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." On the one hand, Armstrong quote is saying how we've achieved great progress in developing a spacesuit capable of traveling into and surviving outer space to land on the moon. But on the other hand, it's also referencing the race we were a part of. As the Soviet Union, Sputnik was the first satellite, the United States was the first to land on the moon. Everyday conversations are full of subtext, subtle meanings, and clues. We can also see examples of this in today's news about the U.S. involvement in the Ukraine-Russia war, from yesterday's article in the Wall Street Journal. Friday's White House meeting between Trump and Ukrainian president, in which the U.S. president berated the Ukrainian leader during an extraordinary on-camera exchange, triggered frantic diplomacy among European allies as they both sought to display support for Ukraine while finding a way to ensure the U.S. doesn't turn its back on Kiev. One of the disagreements in the argument in the Oval Office was Ukraine's insistence that any peace deal has had strong security guarantees from its Western allies to deter Russia from trying to invade Ukraine again. Zelensky recounting of how Russian President Vladimir Putin had violated previous ceasefire deals triggered a sharp response from Vice President J.D. Vance and Trump. United States President Trump and Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky and many Western allies all have common goals, which is one, they don't want to see the war between Russia and Ukraine drag out for much longer, and two, they're working toward solutions leading the war toward an eventual peace. Does President Trump not care about the Ukraine? Does he not care that Russia has invaded it and that it has violated a ceasefire deal? Of course not. But Trump knows that if he were to be sympathetic towards Zelensky at that moment, when he's talking about Russia violating ceasefire agreements, this would go against or be counterproductive toward the goal of reaching peace. I want to turn now to yet another example of deeper level meaning in social interaction and conversation. I have not been a manager before, so I cannot speak from first hand, but I have worked under bosses. So I can attest to the fact that managers interact on a deeper level all the time. In fact, part of managers' job is existing in the fact that they're operating often on a much deeper level than their customers, employees, or even fellow bosses realize or are aware of. An example of subtext in film happens in the movie Ocean's 11. Danny Ocean, a man seeking a quick payday through organizing a complicated casino heist or robbery. You have a scene where Danny and his partner Rusty are going to talk to Ruben and try to get him to join the team, to join this casino heist. So here's Ruben talking. So I'm going to say what the line or the screenplay is, and then I'm going to explain what is actually being said, the subtext or the meaning. Okay, Ruben. I know more about the casino's security than any man alive. Meaning, he knows way more than they do, possibly more than anyone. I invented it. It cannot be beaten. They got cameras, they got locks. What am I saying? You guys are pros. Unless you forget, once you are out the front door, you're still in the middle of the desert. Meaning, I don't think you're going to be able to do it. Ruben, we all go way back. Meaning, to ask me for help on this job, it wasn't a bad question. I owe you for the thing with the guy and the place, and I'll never forget it. Meaning, we've worked together before. Ruben, just out of curiosity, which casino did you geniuses decide to rob? Meaning, I'm somewhat interested, or I might be interested in this job. Ruben, those are Terry Benedict's casinos. Meaning, I am interested in this job. Ruben, what do you have against Terry Benedict? Rusty, what do you have against him? That's the question. Okay, the meaning Rusty explains before I can here. Ruben, he torpedoed my casino. Now he muscled me out of the way to make way for some gaudy monstrosity. Don't think that I don't see what you're doing. You're going to need a crew too, and you're going to need a crew as nuts as you are. Who do you got in mind? Meaning, I'm in. So you can see from this example that though it's not a perfect one-to-one analogy, and that you have to at some point kind of make kind of reasonable guesses on what the subtext is. There's this whole another level that is going along with each of our conversations, what people say and what they actually mean by it. I recently wrote a song called Hint of Help, and in the lyrics I'm basically alluding or referencing this subtext or deeper level meaning that's going on in our conversations. So I say here in the lyrics, some people need help, some people can't find themselves. Some people aren't free, some people can't just be. Everybody needs help, but everybody can find themselves. So I'm basically saying that, there are people that sometimes have trouble finding who they are, and that we can help them, but it is something possible. It is possible we can find who we are. Chorus, your actions cause stress to my brain. If I change, would you think the same? Okay, let me come back to the chorus because I explain what I mean here in the second verse. Some people have problems. Some people don't ask to solve them. It's that on the way toward people who are trying to achieve their goals, sometimes they can receive help and it can be good. But sometimes people volunteer help and they don't necessarily ask for it. To say some people don't ask to solve it. So some people aren't asking for someone to solve the problem. Sometimes people just step in and do it. So you have to kind of be aware of how people are different skill level and ability, capability, and that you have to kind of factor that in if I'm driving on the road. I notice kind of putting pressure on this car. I want them to go faster, and it causes this driver to be upset, and then they don't drive any faster. In fact, it makes them drive slower. If I kind of pressure this driver and say, hey, I'm trying to go faster, they start speeding up. So drivers are different, people are different. And so you kind of have to notice what is the different scalability, the differences of different people, and the kind of people, and what that means for how I'm going to interact with them, how I'm going to bring about change or influence to a situation. How can I realize the different levels of meaning and communication and conversation, and how can I interact within that and use that as a strategy to being successful in an interaction. Okay, I hope that made sense and you got something out of that.